Some of the sources of doubt as to NGCP's ownership control. Each chairman is from NGCC, despite SGP being supposedly owning 60% of it. So they gave it to the 40%. Official sources from the Chinese government suggest an active control and management. We look at all the papers of the Politburo and it's there. Unbelievable. They keep writing it. So SGP has 2 additional layers of subsidiaries for its indirect ownership over NGCP. Next. The board of directors of the NGCP is here. Xu Guangchao. And at a certain point, once we're given a mandate under Quinta, we will definitely ask for his presence to explain his role. There's no other way. Otherwise, para saan pa, tigilan na natin itong mga batas na to. Let's close down Congress. Next. The official website of the Chinese Belt and Road Initiative says the state grid gained the right to run the Philippine grid. It's their own words. Next. An official paper by the 2 top officials of NGCC, both CCP officials, is also outlined. My God, member pa ng Communist Party of the Philippines. You read it, of China, Communist Party of the China. You read it. SGID foreign-based team of senior managers is deeply involved in the decision-making for major operating matters of overseas holding companies such as strategic planning, business plans, financial budgets, senior management, putting the advanced management concept and excellent technical experience of NGCC, well, that should be good, into effect in the development planning and daily work of the overseas operation. The SGID headquarters has set up overseas operations management. That is from their own mouth. Including management appointments and removals. So it's not just the hiring, but the firing. Next. Something's very wrong recently. There's apparently been a lot of buying, mostly local. So there's been a shifting of the ownership of, I come from the stock market. So I smell one when I see you. I can smell one. There is that belated attempt to regularize because dati na yung SGCC owns 40%. Since under the PSA, anything above 40 should be owned by a Filipino. Since SGP is listed, there should be no foreign ownership of SGP at all. So now, next, there is a 7.8%. Can you show the 7.8? Okay, next. Well, the NGCP has denied that it is controlled by the State Grid Corporation of China, that it has no executive that are Chinese national. Each chairman is not Chinese, and that's against the law. A top official, and this committee or some other committees, because at a certain point next week, the speaker would like to transfer this to Quinta for Murang Kuryente. A top official of the SGC, despite Synergy Grid of the Philippines supposedly being a larger shareholder than the State Grid Corporation of China because SGP owns 60% and should be 100% Filipino, but it's not. Next. Mahuhuli ko kayo. As a public utility under public as amended, only 40% of its equity can be owned by foreigners. 40% of the NGCP is already owned by the State Grid of China. The other 60% is shared by Monte Oro and Calaca, both Filipino companies, which are in turn layered by 2 more layers of Filipino companies. Next. When corporation is under layers of intervening corporation, the Supreme Court, under Justice Presbitero, the father of our former speaker, and now the chairman of the Committee on Energy, says the grandfather rule applies. We opine that we must look into the citizenship of individual stockholders, natural persons of that investor corporation, in order to determine if the constitutional and statutory restrictions are complied with. If the shares of stock of the immediate investor corporation is in turn held and controlled by another corporation, then we must look into the citizenship of the individual stockholders. Nothing has been clearer than ever before, and it is enunciated by the father of our former speaker, LAV. As a corollary, the 60-40 Filipino to foreign equity ratio is apparently met by subject or investing corporations that resort to the grandfather necessarily if that exists as to the locus of the beneficial ownership and control. In this case, a further investigation as to the nationality and personalities, then I guess it redounds to Congress, given its plenary powers to investigate and to inquire that laws are being followed. So this is a resolution under nickel mining and development, tesoro mining, etc. in 2015. Next. Some of the sources of data to NGCP's ownership control. Each chairman is from NGCC, despite the SGP being supposedly owning 60% of it. So they gave it to the 40%. Official sources from the Chinese government suggest an active control and management. We look at all the papers of the Politburo and it's there. Unbelievable. They keep writing it. So SGP has 2 additional layers of subsidiaries for its indirect ownership over NGCP. Next. The board of directors of the NGCP is here. Xu Guangchao. And at a certain point, once we're given a mandate under Quinta, we will definitely ask for his presence to explain his role. There's no other way. Otherwise, para saan pa, tigilan na natin itong mga batas na to. Let's close down Congress. Next. The official website of the Chinese Belt and Road Initiative says the state grid gained the right to run the Philippine grid. It's their own words. Next. An official paper by the 2 top officials of NGCC, both CCP officials, is also outlined. My God, member pa ng Communist Party of the Philippines. You read it, of China, Communist Party of the China. You read it. SGID foreign-based team of senior managers is deeply involved in the decision-making for major operating matters of overseas holding companies such as strategic planning, business plans, financial budgets, senior management, putting the advanced management concept and excellent technical experience of NGCC, well, that should be good, into effect in the development planning and daily work of the overseas operation. The SGID headquarters has set up overseas operations management. That is from their own mouth. Including management appointments and removals. So it's not just the hiring, but the firing. Next. Leading the Beltway, again, if you read this, it clearly shows this is, if you want to source, this is the paper. Just, marunong ka kasi mag-inchik eh. Next. So the foreign shareholders of SGP, this is where one of the violations appear. And that is why there was this scrummage for localizing the ownership of SGP for the past 2 weeks. That's why the price cap goes up, because the foreigners have to sell. They need to localize. So as you can see, percentage of total foreign ownership of SGP is 7.48%. That is based on the PSE records. This is clearly a violation. I worked for 7 years in the Philippine stock market. I worked for Swiss Bank. And one of my jobs is to look for. Next. Can Congress still amend the NGCP franchise to make its tax and profit structure fair? Yes. Section 2, Terms and Conditions. This franchise shall be for a term of 50 years from date of effectivity is hereby granted and on condition that it shall be subject to amendment, alteration, or repeal by Congress when the common good so requires. Next. Proposal 1. NGCP's compliance with listing rules should be used as a market benchmark for cost of equity. Don't let NGCP have its cake and eat it too. NGCP comply with the listing requirement under its franchise through SGP, which controls 67% of One Taipan and Pacifica Holdings, which in turn fully owns Monte Oro and Calaca High Power, which in turn own 30% each of the common stock of NGCP. This is a highly opaque structure that allows SGP's owners to minimize tax liabilities through tax-exempt status of intercorporate dividends and minimize, and therefore, the rule of the presbyterial rule with respect to inquiring into the direct ownership or the citizenship or the personalities of the owners is pretty much justified. SGP should only be considered as compliance with the listing requirement under the NGCP franchise. That's good enough. If it is also used as the benchmark for the beta component of the WACC, then that's another thing, Madam ERC. This would dramatically reduce the allowed profit since SGP, a mere holding company, is a low volatility stock. So I don't know whether, would you like to have your cake or you want to eat it too? Attorney Sanjay, I don't know whether you can speak for the company. So, pwede ba ito na lang gamitin natin for the computation of the WACC? Because the beta of holding companies are much lower than operating companies. Next. Proposal 2. Subject NGCP to a national security review by the IIPCCC. The NGCP investment qualifies under Section 69, Rule 12 of the FAIR. Upon order of the President made by a foreign government-controlled entity or state-owned entity, except independent pension fund, sovereign-owned wealth funds, and multinational. The exception being shall not apply if the fund is incorporated in or controlled by a foreign. Second, for violations of anti-dummy law, again, this is the presbyterial rule. The penalty or forfeiture of such right, franchise, privilege, and property or business enjoyed or acquired in violation of the provisions of the Act may be imposed. I don't know whether we want to go this far. Next. Proposal 3. Subject NGCP to all regular taxes as in the case of water distribution utilities. Shifting from a franchise tax to a seat-based regime is also quite common in Congress, including SMART recently. Revenues can be earmarked towards a Pantawid Corriente subsidy scheme, especially for land. It's time for the corporation, not for government or ordinary taxpayers to drink Coke and pay taxes. I think corporations should do their part. So I'm talking here about the incidence of taxes. Next. Proposal 4. Subject NGCP to a fixed reasonable rate of return. Until the adoption of the PBR, it was customary to impose a 12% RORB or IRR for strategic industries. Next. Tapos na, no? Windfall tax on excess profits. Disgorgement is allowed under IPIRA. Remedies shall without limitation include the imposition of price controls, issuances of injunctions, requirements of the investment or disgorgement of excess profits, and imposition of fines and penalties. So I was part of the people who wrote IPIRA together with Popo. And the word disgorgement is always, the author is always me. I always believed of the power of the state to disgorge excess profits because corporations must share. Profits in extreme excess pa, of required revenues under PBR can be taxed with revenues going towards a Pantawid Kuryente scheme. So all these actually are being made in anticipation of a possible transfer of, how do you call that, mandate for this particular topic to, and next, recommendations of the committee to the House outside the WAM jurisdiction. We want to call in Chairman Mr. Xu Guangchao to explain his role in the Board of Directors. I hope he is inactive. I hope is initiate congressional hearings to determine whether NGCP is in violation of the anti-dummy law based on the Presbyterian ruling. Revisit ERC rate setting methodology on NGCP, particularly WAC setting. Which one do you use? NGCC, SGCC, or a proxy, or SGC, or SGP? Explore amendment to the... Natakot na kaya, no? Okay lang, mabait naman ako. Pakapin mo muna siya. Solo ka ba dito? Isang tambak bang kasama mo? Explore amendment to the NGCP franchise to decouple systems operator and network transmission role. Pwede ba? Ano na lang kayo? Taga-rent na lang kayo ng equipment sa gobyerno and let the government run it? I think some people are starting to believe that the government should own, but the facilities can be owned, but the management of those facilities is invested with national interest. Next. So that is quite. Pwede bang bigyan mo na lahat ng tubig para makapag-isip lahat po sila. So may I recognize Congresswoman Rosemary Panotes of the 2nd District of Camarines Norte. Talo nyo na ang Albay. Number 3 na kayo sa tourism. Congresswoman Micaela Swansing of the 1st District of Nueva Ecija. Representative Ron Swallow of the Ron Salo of Kabayan Party List. On the Sun's Congresswoman Janet Garin, 1st District of Iloilo. Congressman, ang dami. Magka-30 na tayo. Congressman Mariano Hernandez. Anong pangalan ni Ruth? Ito pala, si future governor of Laguna. Congresswoman Josefina B. Talyado. Wow. And Congressman Allen U.T. Ito ba yung recently married? Laging nasa Zoom. And Congressman Ray Reyes, whose interest will of course be on the next topic, which will be on the tobacco taxes and vape taxes. So I don't know what is the previous disposition. Anybody would like to ask question?